1:30 p.m. And oh, the church going. What's up? How you doing, man?
What's up, man? How
Good,
you
how are you?
doing? Oh,
Like
I'm good.
Ngoma,
hey now.
what's up?
Good, brother.
How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm
You
good.
look better. You
All,
look better than all right.
all things considered, I'm great.
Yes, you look better than all right. It's good to see your face.
Good to see yours too,
It's good
man.
to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Obviously, our hearts are heavy because for those of us
Yeah,
who knew, I
Miguel.
don't,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't believe the world understands how many people he helped.
No.
That's the thing because here, you
Yeah.
got your stories, I got my stories, but all I know is this. I read the first time I was ever in the cafe. I read on the open mic. Miguel came up to me afterwards and started talking about, hey, that was really good, blah, 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 blah. Who are you? Where you come from? I never saw you before, blah, blah, blah. 2 months later, I was sitting on a panel at the University of Virginia with him, Intezaki Shange, Amiri and
Wow,
Amina
that's
Baraka.
amazing.
Okay.
Who else was there? Latin Empire from up in the Bronx, a hip hop group. Who else? It was somebody, Jimmy Santiago Baca. And
Wow.
I'm sitting like in Goma, if I had 12 poems to my name, that was it. And dude took me and paid me lovely. What am I doing sitting on a panel with Amiri and Amina Baraka, Intezaki Shange, Jimmy Santiago Bach? I'm like, and yo, bro, the day, and we were there for 5 day residency.
Wow.
University of Virginia, 5 days. Again,
Okay.
like I said, he paid me lovely for it. And yet, the 5 days I was there, the most important time was when we, after all the day's activity, sitting in the lobby at night, they was all getting a sip on, and
Yeah,
what they
right.
were talking about was the learning. I got a PhD in those 5 days just listening, not
Bet.
only about craft, but poetry as business,
Yep.
poetry as art. And I remember it's the first time I ever heard Miguel say that poetry was not about beauty, it was about pain.
Mm.
And I was
Mm.
like, and so when I came back, because I was like everybody else, I want to be published. I want a double day. I want my poems. When I came back, I knew the last thing I needed to do was be published.
Okay.
Hanging around him, Amiri, Amina, they were like, the wave is to get it out there, live, theater, performance, recording, CD. And you and Goldman know better than anybody else how, because that's your thing. You've been doing it forever. But without Miguel, I wouldn't even have a life in the arts.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
wouldn't even have a life in the arts. And so I'm really sad today.
Remember the early
But
days,
also,
we used to do Baraka's plays in the New York in
yeah,
'70s
exactly.
and stuff like that. That was my intro there, like to the New York with Baraka doing his plays, and that was Miguel, and he's like, yeah, you come on in, do this. I'm like, okay, this is what's up.
And then when I met him, he was a professor emeritus at Rutgers, and he used to teach that really popular ethnic literature in the USA, right? In the
Right.
US. But the thing that tripped me out, and you probably was had to go a couple of times too, but he used to invite all of us to Rutgers to teach in his class during Black History Month.
Okay.
And I think I might have told this story before when I was talking about Miguel Pinedo, but I didn't know until he brought me into a class one day that he taught Shakespeare. I didn't know that. And then Gomer, the night before we went into the class, the night before he said, Reg, I'm picking you up such and such and such. Don't even pick me up. Meet me at the cafe at such and such, or meet me at my crib on Second Street, and we going to Rutgers. You're gonna teach my class today, just like that, and brush up on your Shakespeare. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
What
Hello,
is
everyone. I hope glad everybody's here. Hope everybody's feeling healthy and happy. I hear the weather's kind of sucking over there. It's 75 where I'm at. God bless me.
wow?
You know. um. So what I like to do, I like to read. I'm going to open up today, but I like to read. I like to start by reading and I don't even want to call it reading, but saying some poems that had effects on me when I first heard them in the cafe. And some of these people most of the people I never heard of before. They weren't anybody famous in my mind because I wasn't a literary person, but these things stuck in my mind. And I started to realize as I got older and more mature and got a little bit more experience that if you say something in front of a group of people orally, if you're orally speaking to a group of people, you need to have something that's happening in your work that makes them never forget that experience. It doesn't mean they have to learn or know the whole thing, but there's got to be something inherent in your work that makes the person who hears it never forget it. So I'm gonna start off with here's probably someone that most people in this session right now probably never heard of this woman, and her name's very young at the time. Her name is Deirdre Moses, and her pen name was 99, and she was a member of the Green Card Poets out of Brooklyn College with Samantha Corbell, 99, Sonia San, who played the detective on The Wire,
Yeah.
and Everton Sylvester. I know you know these people, Ngoma. I
Yeah.
know you know Everton. But I'm gonna start off by reading a poem by Nine that shocked me because after she read it, I'll never forget that I walked out the cafe that night and I still had OBGYN in my head because it was in her poem. And just the way she had it strategically placed within the framework of her poem, that I would never forget it, which made me want to read it or listen or learn it. Okay, here we go. And we're going to also talk about certain devices that popular poets use and how they use these devices to help dramatize or theatricalize their poetry. So this is Burns by 99, aka Deirdre Moses. I never, I never, I never suck sour splints from a chew stick. Don't flick bricks cause fire sticks to flame. Get wicks to give brothers who choose to let burns remain. Now I see all you Toms, Dicks, and Harrys is not the same. Some dip their lower lips, sip a supple poison, risk toxins just to get their rocks in and not their rocks off. Cancer by alien tongue, now doctor says cough. Team with the enemy, forgetting the me, we, she. I lie in with and savor the flavor of a sexual foe, then slowly watch it grow to OBGYN I go. Heave ho and toe the medication. My love remains along with dedication. Bad sensations hasten when you avoid and you diss me. Convinced I'm the carrier, new excuse not to sex me. Eyes to door, hat drops to floor. Can't ignore there's no latex between us. Lust was a fuss, yet put up was a must from an intelligent hoe. So the seasons I feel the need to curse you. Burn, baby, burn. Of this your lies won't burn through. Of your love, say you're sorry. I plan to lose it. My brother, your name is Dick, and now I got the balls to prove it. That's Burns by Deirdre Moses, aka 99. And I want to go right to the top of the poem. She uses a device, obviously called repetition, which all of us use from time to time. We want to get our point across. But she starts off by repeating the first line of the poem 3 times. I never, I never, I never. And she changes it up. She switches up the volume. She switches up her tone, intonation. All right. But she uses it to pull an audience in. All right. To lean forward in their seats, not back in their seats. I never, I never, I never. So you have a long vowel sound, just the pronoun I. You can take that I and hold it, stretch it, flex it, bend it, making the language plastic and elastic. And there's so many people that use that type of a device just at the very top of their pieces, just to engage the audience. And Goldman, let me ask you a question. How often now you're a musical person, obviously, but how often have you begun something in front of a group of people and repeated something from the head of it? Was that a device you've ever used? Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on, I can't. Hold on, let me check. Is there
Okay,
something wrong with
okay,
mine?
okay.
Are you
I'm
good?
good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got one poem that I use all the time. It's almost like it's almost like a mantra that I start with. I didn't ask to come here. I was kidnapped. Is the first
Ah, and how often how many times does it depend on who's in the audience, how many people are there? How do you decide how many times you will repeat it?
line.
Is that a conscious decision? Is it improvisational?
I don't repeat it actually. That's just the open. My gimmick is to come up with a line that grabs your attention from the first line,
Right from the top.
from the top.
Right from the top.
If
Oh,
I, if
okay,
I
all
can't
right.
get your attention from the first line, then I figure you shouldn't listen to the rest of it.
Well, that's okay. So for everybody within earshot of what Ngoma just said, you need to. So you would suggest to most people who are really trying to gain an audience's attention to
Yeah,
make
right.
sure the first thing out of your mouth,
Out of your mouth. Yeah, if you can't get my attention in the first 30 seconds of the poem, my mind is someplace else. Because
yeah. Well, that's how we are. That's
yeah,
how we live. And
yeah,
how much worse is it now, thanks to the technical and the technological advances in digital communication? How much more important is it now than it's ever been because of these devices that we're messing around with,
yeah.
the
Because so much
digital
stuff is
world?
going on. If I didn't get your attention in the beginning, you did.
Yeah, and people are just gone. Anybody else with any comments in the room? How's everybody doing out there?
I'm doing good, Reg. Peace and blessings.
Hey, what's up, man? I'm sad, man.
Yeah, man.
Miguel
Me
was my
too.
boy. Yeah, Miguel was my boy.
Yeah.
And you a graduate from the same university, man.
Word, word. And we're from the same school. I'm third generation, but I'm still Nuyo. I still bleed red, white, and blue Puerto Rican flags.
You got a Miguel story?
Actually, I don't. I haven't. I didn't get a chance to meet Miguel. By
Oh,
the time,
really?
yeah. I mean, really, I started getting heavy in the game in 2016, and he was getting sick by then, so he wasn't really hanging around the Nuyorican as much. He would only make some
Oh,
appearances, but some of my mentors, friends, I've read up on Miguel. I have stories from friends about Miguel. So, I
what about
never.
his poetry?
Oh yeah, like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, you can't pick up a Puerto Rican anthology without having, Piñero and Algarin and Petey Thomas and those folks in there. So, his stuff is there. And thanks for sending me that poem today of him reading it.
Oh, Sunday
Yeah,
afternoon,
yeah.
right?
There's nothing, there's nothing like hearing, especially when like those first generation of the Nuyorican poets read their work. They really laid the foundation for like the spoken word and the theatricalization of poetry that was happening in both the Latin community and the Black community in the 60s and 70s for that stuff. So
That's where
yeah,
that term came from
yeah,
Miguel. Miguel was so adamant that we should be theater people. And
yeah.
going back to what Ngoma said earlier about how they were doing Baraka's plays.
Word.
And Miguel, they were doing Baraka's plays in the cafe, and Miguel was the main force behind that. But Miguel was the first one that came up with that theatricalization for me. And he used to
Mhm.
always say, like, yo, it is theater, it is drama. It's just a less of a risk. This was a low risk investment. So the big time
Mhm.
producers want to ignore it. Like it's not really art. But here's a Miguel story. The 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 track that I sent you today,
Mhm.
it came from an album, my second album, Sweeping on Clean My Street. But
Mhm.
the whole thing happened because Miguel took me, my brother Calvin, Mark, the keyboard player, Johnny Almendro's band, Carl Hancock Rocks, and he took us to the Berlin Jazz Festival in 1994.
Wow.
To the Berlin, and we were
Wow.
in this section of the Berlin Jazz Festival called the Burning Spoken Word. And it was Amiri Baraka and Blue Arc, Don Byron with the poet Sadiq, and
Mm.
it was us. And then who else? I'm leaving. Oh, Gylan Kane from the Last Poets.
Mm.
Gylan Kane, who had the record that was really popular, Blue Gorilla, right? So the track I sent to you today, we went in the studio and I put it on my album because we had performed it live in Berlin. but it was an improvisational thing. And I was trying to go in the studio and recapture what we did on stage in the Berlin Jazz Festival in the studio. And Miguel just killed it. And Miguel's funny because Miguel can't sing worth a jack, right? He can't sing worth a shit, right?
Yeah.
And yet he never let that get. And I mean, he could in a way, but he was always going off key. He didn't have the perfect ear, but he never let that get in the way of his celebration of song and poetry and life. You know, like was it like the very beginning of the poem? He just this dope bass line, then he just a Sunday afternoon. Then he go from song to speak, and it is 1:30 p.m. and all the church-going Latinos have crossed themselves, and now they're going home to the peace of the day. Pan y mantequilla, una taza de café, and many sweet recollections. He was hilarious.
Yeah.
But he was dope because he let nothing get in the way of his celebration of his words and his life and his people's life and Puerto Rican's life and the Lower East Side life. He was just amazing, man. You know. So what's been going on with you, bro, since I spoke to you last?
Oh, damn, it's been like 2 weeks. Well, I'll tell you what I did. I actually had a realization in our last workshop because we were talking about poets.
On anybody
like
within
musicians.
earshot, if you got a Miguel story, yeah. Who doesn't do that? And we got somebody sitting in the room that's a really great practitioner of this. I mean, he plays a didgeridoo. And Goldman actually plays a didgeridoo and does poetry while he's playing.
Wow.
I mean, that's almost unheard of. And the first time I ever heard / saw a didgeridoo was with Sekou and Craig Harris.
Oh yeah.
Remember Ngoma?
He wasn't the first person I saw do it, but yeah, I've done some work with Craig too. Craig put together a Didge choir, and we opened for Hugh Masekela upstate one time.
What was that experience like?
It was nice. It was dope. It's dope.
Would you?
I've done several gigs with Craig over the last few years. I play 12 other instruments besides Didge, you know.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but that's just something that it's hard for people to recollect how that instrument can even be played, much less play it and do your double breathing and then be able to pull off of it and speak and then go back to it. That's such an amazing skill. And I bring it up simply because Miguel forced me, because I don't sing at all either, but being around Miguel and watching him go from the spoken word to singing to creating harmonies and choirs and even being around a person like you. For the very first time I ever saw you perform, I'm like, yo, dude is talking, singing, he's playing an instrument, he got I mean, it was just an amazing thing how all the elements were involved. It was always so fascinating how people could get all these elements involved. They just were not pigeonholed to just one thing. You're a perfect example of that, bro.
Yeah. That can be problematic because people don't know how to market you.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go.
That's real.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It has good side and it's bad, you know, like, okay, where do we put him?
Where do we put this person? Or so how often have you run into that in your career?
All the time.
All the time. All the time.
See you do one thing one day, and then they expect that you're gonna do the same thing the next time they see you. And I try not to do the same thing twice.
Well, I think that's a staple of anyone who's continually working. I don't even want to say working. I'll say poeticizing. Anyone who's regularly doing it, you don't want to bore yourself.
Right.
So you're constantly coming up with different variations, and it could be off the same theme. I know, like, for instance, all of us probably sitting in this room have signature poems, and we don't label it that.
No.
All right. We never label it that because, like, John Coltrane would never say my favorite things is a signature poem. I mean, he didn't even write it. That's somebody else's thing, but he would never say, well, that's my signature poem. But I heard that the last 3 years he was alive, he never did a concert without doing my favorite things. The last 3 years he was alive, and it was always changing and becoming a different variation. Elvin Jones and Rashid Ali and Alice Coltrane. Towards the end of John's life, they used to say, like, yo, we would start off with my favorite things. It would turn into the whole concert. Maybe 45, 50 minutes. Be just my favorite things, just different variations on the same thing. So I lose my mind when I hear poets say stuff like, well, I don't want to read that because that's an old poem. Or I've been reading that for 8 years or 8 days or whatever, but I don't want to read that anymore because I'm getting kind of, you can't never get bored on your creativity.
Yeah.
You gotta always give it new life and breath and blood and marrow, whatever you want to call it. Like like if somebody calls a poem out for you, yo, Dimitri, read so and so and so. Does that thrill you? Does that get you excited? You're like, nah, I'm sick of reading that.
Nah,
You
it gets
know,
me excited all the time. As a
all
matter
the
of
time.
fact, my wife's like, stop reading that poem. And I'm like, nah, you gotta hit it. Because the thing is, there's always that one poem that you could hit a different way each time because you love it so much, you know? Like I even get the energy just talking about it. Yeah.
What poem you got like that? It's off the top of your head right now. What poem?
It's that Mother Botanica poem that I mentioned that line.
Give me some of
from
that, man. Hit some of that for us.
Okay. I'm gonna give you the whole piece.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's gonna
good,
translate through here. Aguanile, aguanile. Mother Botanica morphed 99 cents of sliced bread into dough balls for breakfast. Saturday morning, very early, no butter, no mayo, just filled with my daily bread. Going to the Botanica on a half-empty stomach to fill yourself up on the sweat guys in the tears of me. I am no air conditioner. I am heat and murmur. You are not your world, but I am not your island. I am what you bring to me, the ding at the storefront, vibrations and shakers, greeting me in the language of your grandmama's swollen feet. Come into me, son. I am her aguanile. Nile River Rich. Disguised in espiritismo of Ongo San and Alcolado. Instead of cages, my people come here by the baskets. And when it is your turn to transcend, it will be you who comes looking for me.
Let me ask. I am. Was that written down in the text, the original text?
On the text.
How does that happen? How does that transpire?
Well, really, the thing is, what doesn't translate from spoken word to page is that agua nila is actually agua, which is water, and Nile, which is talking about the diasporic river of the Nile back in Mother Africa. So since I can't really translate that through speech, I try to slow down my poem and bring you back by doing the repetition. So you could really hear the agua and Nile reference when I finally.
How did that happen? Where did that come from that you decided, okay, they may not understand this, or that's not a great translation or whatever? How do you decide I'm going to at this point go ba 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 ba, which is totally musical?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, actually, it came because it happened by accident because I was jamming with a jazz trio, and it just made sense because they weren't ready yet. So the bass player was still grooving, and I was like, okay, so let me extend this until they ended their measure. So that's when I did it that time. But then afterwards, I started to be able to justify it. When I didn't have the music there, I realized that when I say Agua, Nile, River, Rich, I didn't get some of those oohs from the audience, like they caught it. So I knew I had to do something there. I had to have some sort of technique to slow it down so they know it's an intentional catch of having the water of the Nile there.
So how much is working with live musicians? How much does it change the way you actually write when you come away from that experience?
It changes 100% of that time, but I will also say just performing in front of an audience, they're going to catch things that you didn't catch. They're going to have emotions, and they're going to think you got some really sweet and banger lines that you don't know of because you're so in your head just thinking about fostering some of these lines. So definitely with musicians 110%, because especially when you're playing with jazz musicians or like salseros, which they're very, very close. Sometimes you got to follow them. I mean, there's a synergy of musicians and the spoken word artists working together. But you know, at some points you got to know when to lead and when to follow. So some of those different moments that I walked away with were from me having to follow other musicians, either musicians I've played with before, or you know, we just hooked up for a jam session.
So
But
you're a
yeah, every
better
time,
listener because of it. You're a better
definitely,
listener because of that experience. That's the thing
definitely.
that I noticed about working with music. And I've been really fortunate that I have brothers and sisters and family members that are really great musicians. And I remember I asked my brother Calvin to make some music for me once. He said, "For what?" I said, "So for some poetry." He said, "Oh, please, man, I ain't but be bothered." So then he comes to hear me read poetry a cappella at the cafe.
Mm,
And he left that night, not only just me, but just the whole vibe. He was like, "Whoa, this, I didn't realize that poetry was musical like that." And that's what he said. He said, "I had no idea that it was," because that's how he's
yeah,
listening to it. He's not listening, he's listening to the content, obviously,
yeah,
but he's more concerned with the musicality of it.
that
And so when it was
pulse.
time for us to make a record, Calvin would just have, he would come to the poetry spots and listen to me read the poems we were going to put on
Mm,
the album. Then Calvin and Mark would start making music that they thought would affect the crowd the
uh-huh.
same way my words affected them.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty heavy. You know, like I don't play an instrument, so I don't really know it like that. And sure enough, I would listen to some of the tracks that they made after they listened to my poems, but also being affected by the vibe in the space.
Mm,
They were actually paying attention to what was happening in the space and how the audience, like the way they felt is one thing, but then watching or feeling the vibe in the joint. And they started scoring my poems,
yeah,
not
that's
making
I love
music to
that.
lay underneath them, but they started to score them. And when
Yeah.
Calvin explained to me what that actually meant, I was like, that's genius, because it goes back to listening. That means they, as musicians, would have to listen and not just listen to the, again, content, but they would have to listen to the vibe that was being created by the word, the empty spaces, the adulation, you know, the celebration, the yelling, the screaming, the quiet, the whispers. And then they were able to take that and go delve into this. Calvin and Mark make music that I could hear it, I could start crying.
Mm,
Before I've been on stage with them and they start playing, and Calvin will come up with the bass line, and I'm ready to start because it opens me up,
right, right.
totally opens me up. If anybody sitting in a session would like to talk to us about your ability to listen, not only as a writer but as a performer, what is the importance of having the
Right.
listening skill?
I got this one because actually, okay, so
What up, Iowa, back in the house?
yeah, exactly, Iowa boy back here. So y'all perform differently than we do out here. Like from what I've seen at the like New York open mics I've been going to virtually,
Yeah.
y'all do things completely different. Like not completely differently, but how I hear y'all perform sounds different from like the open mics I've been over here in Iowa or in the Midwest.
Give me an example.
The song stuff, never heard of it. Never heard of using music within poetry until I started like it's like the first time I ever saw it was with a poet from Houston, I think, like from Texas. And I haven't seen that again. And I saw that like my sophomore year of like high school. What's 7 years ago? That was years ago. But I didn't see that again until I started going to open mics in different like on East Coast and West Coast.
Yeah.
But really, I've never heard of using music and poetry as much.
Have you started to use it, incorporate it in your own work?
I mean, not as much, but like that's just kind of like a thing. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I want to do it, but I just need to I just need to write the right piece to have it. Because some of my pieces, I'm like, it just doesn't. I've tried, but I'm like, it doesn't fit. It's like it feels forced. I don't want it to feel forced.
Mm.
That's the
When
biggest.
you say it doesn't fit, let me ask you this. Does that mean the words that you choose don't fit in your mouth so that you could sing them? Or are you not choosing the right words that will just naturally or organically sing? There's certain words like here, you don't have too much access to words than anybody else sitting in this session, but your choice of words, all right, and understanding what words fit in your mouth. And when I say fit in your mouth, some words will go in your mouth that you could say. You could say a 5-syllable word where somebody else may stumble. you may be able to sing a 5-syllable word where someone else is off key. So there's so many things to be incorporated in singing, because when people start saying singing, they think something else. But poetry singing, I call it spoken melodies. That's what I call it. Because like we were just talking about Miguel Algarin, founder of the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, passed away yesterday.
Mhm.
The king is dead. Long live the king. And because I'm telling you, without him, I definitely would not have a life in the arts. And I know so many other people. Miguel is one of the first people, and this was in 1990 when I heard him do it. He's one of the first people I ever heard sing/speak. And the singing was more important than the speaking, because the singing, like Ngoma said earlier, you need to be able to say something the first 30 seconds when you get up on stage to grab an audience's attention. All right. Some people are profound like that. Some people
Yeah,
contextually.
That
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
have heard, though. That's the one thing that I seem like I've heard a lot, where that first line, that first couple lines, like that's important. Like that's always been something I've heard. So that's why that's something I think about a lot when I'm writing too. Like my first line has to bring them in.
Okay,
But
so you're writing to be heard or read. See, that's got a lot to do with it too. Are you writing to be read or heard? That's got
yes.
so much to do with it too. You know.
Yeah.
It comes down to whether you're writing for the stage or the page.
There you go.
See,
Yeah.
that, that's why we call it performance poetry, because you performed it instead of just standing up in front of people and reading it off the page.
I
There
think
you
for the
go.
most part, I write to perform.
Yeah.
It's really
Say that again. Say that
I
again.
write to perform most of the time.
Okay.
Oh, wow. All right, that's cool. Anybody else? I write to perform. Like I can say I want to say it. I don't want to call it performance. I want to get up and talk. That's what I want to do. That's what motivates me to write, because I want to, like when I first started doing this, I didn't want to be published. I could care less about being published. I wanted to get on stage and speak, right? I eventually wound up getting published, but that was not my gist. Was like, oh, here's an opportunity, because I had been until I first stepped on a stage to read poetry, I had been voiceless. I didn't realize it at the time, but I had been totally voiceless. But once I got in that arena and stepped up there, well, I'm here, just hearing other people do it. Just hearing other people do it, I was like, whoa, did he just say, here, listen to this. I heard this guy do this, and I didn't even know what it was. We're in a poetry cafe, it's a poetry night, blah, blah, blah. But I heard this guy say this, and when it was done, I was like, wow, I don't know what that is, but I wish I could do that. Check this out. All right, this is from the first Nuyorican Poets Cafe Grand Slam champion, Paul Beatty, in 1990. All right. And this is a poem called Stall Me Out, which eventually got published in 1994 in a book called Joker Deuce on Penguin Press. All right. This is the last poem in the book, I think. But I heard it before I ever read it, I heard it. All right. And people are yelling and screaming. There's a slam going on that night, and then they introduce him because he's a featured reader. And he gets up and he does this. And he does it reading it out of a book, hiding behind the book. And every once in a while, he would pull the book from in front of his face and laugh at his own writing. All right. So he was the antithesis of performance, Check it out. And I'm gonna do it twice. I'm gonna do it fast the way he does it, but he does it like flatline. It's like it's like, here we go. Why you know rhythm, afraid of women, asexual, pseudo-intellectual, ball mouth, Fuji-shaped head, no booty having, size 13 feet, pigeon-toed, crook-footed, Taco Bell, burrito supreme eating, daydreaming, no jump shot, can't dunk, comic book reading, nutrition need, knock these, sap sucking, non-driving, anti-fashion, constantly depressed, clumsy, no money, motherfucker, take your weak-ass poems and go back to Los Angeles. Boom. Why you know rhythm, afraid of women, asexual, pseudo-intellectual, ball mount, Fuji-shaped head, no booty having, size 13 feet, pigeon-toed, crook-footed, Taco Bell, burrito supreme eating, daydreaming, no jump shot, can't dunk, comic book reading, nutrition needing, knock-kneed sapsucker, non-driving, anti-fashion, constantly depressed, clumsy, no money motherfucker, take your weak-ass poems and go back to Los Angeles. And I'm sitting there, and the whole place went crazy, right? They just lost their mind. And this guy was reading this out of a book, standing on the stage, reading out of a book, hiding his face behind the book. And every once in a while, he'd pull his book away and start laughing at his own words. All right. So he was anti-performance. But that's singing to me. That's what I would call singing or spoken melody. Because this guy is anti-performance, the antithesis of performance. And yet he so moved the crowd simply by the words he used and the way he played words against each other. Obviously, there was a rhyme scheme and musicality. But can anybody tell me what they think that poem is about? Or could you say what that poem is about in one word? Anybody sitting here, can you tell me what that poem is about in one word? Nobody, somebody.
It was about
And I'm
himself.
gonna do it one more time because this is interesting. I never really thought to frame it like that. But can you tell me what this poem is about in one word? I'll do it for the last time and I'll do it a lot slower so you can get the subtle nuances.
Okay.
Why you no rhythm, afraid of women, asexual, pseudo-intellectual, bald Mount Fuji shaped head, no booty having, size 13 feet, pigeon-toed, crook-footed, Taco Bell burrito supreme eating, daydreaming, no jump shot, can't dunk, comic book reading, nutrition needing, knock-kneed sap sucker, non-driving, anti-fashion, constantly depressed, clumsy, no money motherfucker, take your weak ass poems and go back to Los Angeles.
Was it about himself?
It's about himself. So you won the prize, just himself. Why do you say that?
I don't know. You can get the best insults off yourself.
Here, let me get here. Ngoma, tell the people sitting in this session what the dozens are.
What the dozens are is it's a conversation usually between one or two people where one person tries to do a better insult to that person before. It used to be supposedly during the time when we were brought here as slaves, when we were brought here and enslaved, that we would do this with each other so that the slave master's insults to us wouldn't piss us off to the degree where we would respond to it. And it kind of
So
like
it's creating a thicker skin.
creating a
It's kind of
that would save your life.
okay. So y'all get that. So now
It actually originated with the Igbo people. They did it before they were brought here. So
there you go. Okay, master class in Black history, folks. Now, Paul Beatty's poem is the quintessential dozens poem because he's inverted the entire form because the poem he's talking about himself.
Yeah.
He's talking about himself. And the reason he's talking here, right now, I'm sitting here telling y'all how dope this guy is. He's a great writer, and this poem is blah, 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 blah. Paul would be the first person that would turn around and go like, nah, I ain't all of that. I ain't trying to hear all that. Let me tell you who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So he inverted the entire dozens form and structure, and he did it about himself. And so this entire description of who he sees himself as, a no rhythm, afraid of women, asexual, pseudo, all these things is what he thinks of himself. So he's created, this is probably the best dozens poem I've ever heard, because as Ngoma was saying, it's a battle thing. It was created as a battle thing. This guy is, he's knocking himself down, so he's battling with himself. So he's getting all these actors. He just recently won the Booker Mann Prize for the best book of fiction in the world, a British award that no American ever won before.
I heard of
All right, he won this award in I think 2015, and like I said, it's the first time an American author, fiction writer, won this award, the Booker Mann. And yet, so he's he's known. Paul's well known, but even back in the day because I said 1990 is when he won the Slam. So even back in the day before he made a breakthrough as this really important international author, he was getting praise from other people, New York Times, MTV, talking about how great he was. And he creates this poem to tell everybody within earshot, this is who I am. Don't be trying to heap all this praise on me. I got a good idea of who I am, what I'm about, where I'm trying to go. I'm not here. Public Enemy, don't believe the hype. And he created a piece of art explaining to the world who he was, which is, in my estimation, that's brilliant. You know, it's totally brilliant. Anybody else want to talk about something they've written where they use a specific technique to draw an audience's attention? Anybody? All right. What techniques do you use in your writing process that you know for certain? And I'm not even talking about contextually. I'm not talking content. What things can you use in your poems or your spoken word pieces that would make an audience lean forward as opposed to sitting back? Anybody. And you can show us if you like. You know, anybody, anyone game?
Sure. Yeah. I'll go.
And tell everybody who you are, man. Don't rely on the little name stuffs in the corner.
Yeah, hey, I'm Doug. I've been going to the Nuyorican and the Bowery for probably half my life.
Half your life. When's the first time you went? When's the first time you went? Tell me the first time you went to both those places.
Bowery was I would say 2008 or so. It was actually before they renovated, which was really awesome. And then the Nuyorican probably around the same time.
Got it. Okay.
But actually, I'm not from. I mean, I actually grew up on Staten Island, and there was and is a pretty fervent arts scene there. So I grew up as a teenager. I actually got into performance poetry when I was like 15, and we had a local open mic that I would go to every week, and that's actually where I started kind of getting my footing as a performance poet.
I wish we had that over here.
Yeah. It actually made a break. It really made or break my interest in spoken word. Like, it was a really encouraging community, and a lot of the people there were older than me. Like, I was like 15, and most of the people there were in their 20s. So they kind of gave me like some mentorship that I didn't have before, and that was crucial to my development. And out of that, I had mentors. You know. And honestly, that's the best thing about mentorship. Like, they give you that early guidance, you know, really makes a difference.
Is there something that one of the mentors said to you that you still carry with you to this day? One specific thing?
Yes. When it comes to performance and you know, and your poems, it has to do really kind of structure, have like a narrative in mind. My poems are very narrative. Some of them almost read like prose, and some of my mentors actually acknowledged that, and they said, when you're performing, you have to really get the narrative structure down, and the ebbs and the flows and the emotional beats of your piece, and that was really important to me.
So is your poetry theater?
Yes, it actually blurs the line between performance poetry and theater, and there is a fine line there. I know that, but yeah, it kind of blurs the line. It's almost like poets theater in a way, I guess.
Well, it is. So wow us with something.
Okay. Just think about it. Got to find something first. Hold on.
How much stuff you got in your head?
My head, I could do something. But
what I'm saying, the only reason I'm asking is because, let's say we were in a jazz club, right? And we were having we were having a little discussion or something. There was a band up on the stage, or they were all just chilling, getting a drink in between sets. And somebody was having a conversation with you. You play alto saxophone, and they said to you like, "Yo, if I played minor 6 with the bass, how would you augment that? Or if I was gonna play New York, or blah, 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 how would you augment that?" And you got the horn right there in your mouth, and you wouldn't even think about it, All right. So I would suggest to everybody who's sitting in this session, be prepared like that at all times. Be prepared. Like you come in here today, you don't know what's going to happen today. You know, I'm glad you're here. Who knows how you got here, how you walked into this cipher, because it's basically just a cipher. But always be prepared. And so no matter what you got in your head, it could be 20 years old, it could be 2 days old, if you know the music of it. All right. So you know that like a lot of times we write dope stuff, but we don't know if it's dope because we
Yeah.
don't know if people will understand what we're talking about. But you can always, everyone who writes, especially poetry, you can always write things that sound great. You can always write things that sound great because
Sure.
you're a wordsmith. You are a master of the use of language and how to work the language. So no matter, like in this situation, if I say to you, like, well, give me something, me and another
Yeah.
11 other people sitting here, we don't want to sit around and wait for you looking for it. All right. It should be just like, okay, yo, check this out. And you don't be trying to let us know how brilliant you are and what kind of a genius you are intellectually. Make whatever you're gonna say to us, make it sing. You don't have to be a singer, but make it sing so we go like, damn, you know, oh, Doug is like, he hit that. And I'll remember it because whatever you say, very few, I mean, it'll be recorded so we can go back, but whatever you say, most of us won't remember when we
Sure.
cut out unless you do something musically that makes us remember. And that's your use of language. I'm not talking about singing, but just your use of language. Like last week, somebody said paradoxical in a workshop, right? And just that word, I'm like, well, I'm taking that. I don't remember what he was. I remember what he was talking about, but he said the word paradoxical. So if I see this guy in the street, paradoxical was so heavy to me, the way it sounded, the way he used it. If I saw him in the street, I would remember his face from the word that he said. So hit us, bro. Hit us, Doug.
All right. I'll do it right now. And this one, I actually took in spring of 19, I took a workshop with Bob Holman. And this was one of the poems that was workshopped in his workshop.
Got it.
He did Poets Theater. So here it goes. Exiting mother's womb. Umbilical cord severed, nourishment attained. Congenital brain chemical imbalance, serotonin, dopamine receptors firing. What is this newborn's namesake? Carving out my identity. My middle name coming attached to a mission statement. Gil. Not like the anatomical attributes of a fish, not like the name of a small village in Iran, for I was not born a Muslim, despite calling a good many of them friends and spirit siblings. For I am Gil, like the activist and poet Gil Scott Heron. I'm also Gil, like the name of a tropical storm that gathers its momentum and swirls with the gale force of sandstorms, typhoons, and hurricanes. These revolutions aren't televised. I am the weather pattern that no meteorologist can predict, that no prophet could foresee coming, needing to batten down those hatches, construct fallout shelters to combat rough weather, stock up on food, clothing, and other essentials, tend to the sick and the dying, making sure to have auxiliary power readily available. As humans, we must prepare for difficulty and crisis. We must take precaution long before something detrimental occurs. Before the bombs drop, before a plane's engine explodes, before a raging totalitarian zealot releases nuclear launch codes, before a smear campaign is conducted by partisan newspapers to tarnish someone's integrity, before the performer's microphone becomes unplugged, his voice unable to carry, before the strings of violin or guitar, before that tone-deaf producer decides to add auto-tune to a songbird's canary quality voice, before humanity goes extinct from rising sea levels within the next 20 years, before the world's population goes from 8 billion to 10 billion. My feet greet the shoreline, touching down on pure sand. I become one with the elements.
All right, I love
There
it. Ngoma.
Really?
Wait.
Yeah.
How did you
Hold on,
do
wait.
that?
Ngoma, Iowa. Hold on. Ngoma, Iowa, Jasmine, Dimitri. What do you, all of you, tell me, what do you remember? Tell me what you
Oh,
remember right
man.
now.
The snap.
Tell me what
Snap.
you remember.
How
You
did you
said
do
snap.
that? Like,
Okay, so snaps. So will you say snaps? Anybody else? Ngoma, Jasmine,
And Goma's on the
Dimitri. What do you
phone.
remember?
So and
Say it
Goma's on the
again.
phone. So and Goma's on the phone. So he'll come back.
Oh, he's on
But
the
yeah,
phone. Oh,
I remember the snap, and I would say the snap is the akin to the repetition because it's stopping. So we're following the narrative. Bam, we stop and we listen. And he's like, "Hey, keep listening," and then he'll continue again until the next snap comes. It's stop
Jasmine.
time.
Yeah, Jasmine. What do you remember? Is she still here?
I know I am here. I am here. It's kind of late
Okay.
here. It's sleeping.
Well, what time is it?
Oh, it's not so. It's not late. It's 11. But yesterday, yeah, it's not late.
Oh, okay, all right.
Like,
What do you remember?
so I feel like I've heard it before. Like I feel like there's something really familiar about it, and I can't pinpoint what it is. So that's sort of what's like running through my mind. There's something about either the poem or the way it's spoken, but there's something.
The way it's spoken, a specific style, maybe.
The way it's spoken, yeah.
Doug,
Yes.
where do you get your style from? Where do you get your
Where
style
do I get
from?
my style from?
Yeah, that style is stylized. All right, the way you
I'm
got
gonna
it
say
constructed is
Yo,
Yeah, I'm probably gonna say probably the beats or the last poets, probably definitely the beats a lot. I think like I've been told that my poetry performance has kind of beatnik qualities to it, so I'm probably
And
gonna
what
say
do
the
you-
beats.
what do you know about the beatniks?
I need to put
Or what the hell?
Oh,
What
I
did
mean,
Bob Holman what did Bob Holman tell you about the beatniks?
Well, Bob Holman, I'm huge into like Burroughs and Ginsberg and Corso and
And
all those
Ferlinghetti
guys.
and yeah.
Yeah, Ferlinghetti. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, City Lights bookstore I went to. That was an eye-opening experience to go to City Lights.
Yeah, I've read there before myself. I love it. Sitting up on the hill like that. I love it. You
Yeah,
know?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry
so-
I got distracted by the phone call.
That's
So-
all right. Doug,
okay.
hold up. Let Ngoma. Ngoma, what do you remember? Did you hear most of Doug's poem?
I didn't even
Ngoma?
hear most. I didn't hear most of the poem.
Okay,
Sorry.
Doug, go from
But
the
what I
top
do it
and
again?
just
What I was gonna say about a period was like I think a lot of your delivery is very important and the rhythm is important. I have a rhythm in my
Yes.
head before I start writing the words. I know how it's gonna fit. Before I start writing words, I'm going like da 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 bang da 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 did it.
Right.
You know, it's almost like a saxophone solo, but that rhythm is happening.
So you're a natural.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like a natural musician.
Yeah, I am. I am a musician, period. Anyway, I started doing music long before I wrote my first poem. I started doing music when I was 7.
Same.
I was like 30. I
That's
could
awesome.
do that too. I do both. I mix
Really
it
cool.
up.
Same. You're conversing with someone who is a failed heavy metal musician. I wrote song lyrics long before I wrote poetry. And
Okay.
now I do both.
Oh,
I do both concurrently.
Mhm.
So give us a
Right,
verse
song.
of one of your dope songs. Give us a verse of one of your dope songs.
Now is not the time to be silent. Now is not the time to turn your eyes from the violent. Now is not the time to show your poker face. Now is not the time to walk from attacks on another race.
What's the bass line? Give me the bass line now. What's the bass line?
Okay.
Okay.
Now give me the tempo. Give me a finger pop
Dum.
tempo.
well, yeah.
Okay, I'm in with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
you perfectly.
Yeah.
Somebody else bring the bass line. Somebody else bring the bass line.
Dum, dum, dum. Dum, dum, dum. Dum, 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 dum. Dum, dum, dum. Dum, dum, dum,
Oh, you ain't no
dum.
fail. So how you gonna call yourself a failed rock musician? That's bullshit, man. Yo, Doug,
Yeah.
Go back to the top.
I say that because
Wait, what?
I've
Go back
worked
to the
in
top?
several bands and none of them made it past the garage.
Well, maybe they're not listening to you.
They all had
You
different
know?
ideas of what direction they want to put their bands in.
Exactly. You cannot be you can't be great at any collaborative art if people are not listening, but don't put the blame on yourself. Doug, go
Yes.
back to the top of your poem and rip like I'll stop you, but give me the first pass. You probably don't even know what that means, but I'll stop you when you get to the end of your first pass. Just go.
All right, go. Okay.
Go, just go.
Exiting mother's womb. Umbilical cord severed, nourishment attained, congenital brain chemical imbalance, serotonin and dopamine receptors firing. What is this newborn's namesake?
Okay,
Carving
stop
out my
right.
identity.
Yo, so
Hey,
stop
wait,
on
wait,
what
wait.
is. What is.
What is?
There was a part in it that I feel like you could hold out a little bit longer that made it almost more music-like.
Say it.
A little longer? Where?
Like start
Say
just first few lines again. Just say the first few lines again.
Okay. All right. Exiting mother's womb. Umbilical cord severed, nourishment attained, congenital brain chemical imbalance, serotonin,
There.
dopamine. Where?
What was in something brain
Congenital brain chemical imbalance.
ingenical brain chemical.
No. Congenital. It means from birth.
Congenital brain
Congenital.
chemical. I feel like a little emphasis on brain chemical to like pop it out a little bit more. I don't know.
Pop it
Yeah,
out.
but that's the rhyme scheme.
Yes, exactly.
So Iowa, you're locking into the rhyme scheme. Do it again and stop when you get that brain. Go from the top and stop and just do a hard stop when you get the brain.
I got your
When
basement.
I get the brain, okay, got it. All right. Exiting mother's womb. Umbilical cord severed, nourishment attained, congenital brain.
Okay, that's what you were hearing, Iowa.
Yeah.
All right, here, listen to Ngoma. Go ahead, play the bass, Ngoma. See if you can riff over top of his bass. Whenever you're ready, Doug. Yeah,
right.
see if you can do
Exiting
it.
mother's womb. Umbilical cord severed, nourishment attained, congenital brain chemical imbalance, serotonin, dopamine receptors firing. What is this newborn's namesake? Carving out my identity, my middle name coming attached to a mission statement. Gil. Not like the anatomical attributes of a fish, not like the name of a small village in Iran, for I was not born a Muslim, despite calling a good many of them friends and spirit siblings, for I am Gil, like the activist and
exactly. Stop right there.
Or
Ngoma, go ahead and play.
Bill. I love that part.
Why?
Oh, the musicality of it just came off the top of his dome spontaneously.
Yeah,
I don't think unless people are really great listeners, I don't think that people, unless they're really wonderful or great listeners, I don't think that they're making the connection between this gill of this fish and Gil Scott-Heron. I mean, you hear it musically, but I don't know about the imagery.
Yeah, okay.
So you need to make sure when you're giving us the fish imagery, all right, you got to make sure that we get that. We have to see that. So that when Gil comes up later, it's just not like, oh, some slip of the tongue, or like, oh, he's really slick or he's really smart. Make sure we get the image. Ngoma, give me some bass. Dimitri, see if you can riff over top of Ngoma's bass.
This is awesome. There we go. Nice.
Love. Tag on the ghetto grottos of post stores on Main Avenue. It's when those doors of businesses shut. That the doors outside those. Oh, okay.
Excellent. Yo, check it out. So one thing, because I got to get out of here soon. Wow, we having a lot of fun. Yo, check this out. One thing that we all.
I've never done it with music.
Oh no. You got to go with music. It's a whole different experience. Once you do the musical thing, you'll never go back. Once you start to understand the melding or fusion of lyrics and music, and what the problem with most of us writers, and it's a big problem, we think we're better than musicians. we think we could tell a story better than musicians. But there's not a writer alive
No,
that could
that's
tell
not
a
true.
better
That's
story.
I disagree with
bullshit.
that, actually. I disagree.
I totally, hey, it's bullshit to me too. But most people I come in contact with, they think that they are better at telling stories
Writers
through
think they're
writing
better
and
at
Oh,
words
no
and
doubt.
concept and
I've met the
contextualization.
same types of folks.
Yeah, so have I. Yeah.
And so
Who,
once you realize that writing is an intellectual exercise first, it's based on you putting something down that another human being would have to understand,
True.
as opposed to Ngoma playing a bass lick. No words involved. You do not have to be, it is not an intellectual exercise to understand the feeling, the tempo, the story, the narrative.
Yes.
Conveying complicated emotions through music is so much more effective. So, as writers and poets and MCs, now MCs kind of got a different take on it because they come into the arena already thinking they're better than the music. And the
oh,
reason
no
being,
doubt.
Totally.
most MCs have never had people create music for them. They go into a studio and somebody's talking about, yo, here's the beat. I made these beats last week. Which one do you like? Which one are you gonna buy from me? As opposed to, I read Dimitri's poem. Dimitri's poem makes me feel like this. The use of language, the way the words are strung together, I feel like this when I read or hear Dimitri's poem. Now, Ngoma will read it and go like, okay, I know how I feel when I read his words. Now let me come up with a bass line. All right. And so all of a sudden, Ngoma's bass line becomes more effective than Dimitri's words. But if you can meld them together or synthesize, that's when you have, which is why Stevie Wonder was so great, because he had to worry about no other musicians. He was writing it and playing it. Prince, the same thing. And all these great geniuses that play music and write the lyrics, the reason why we love their music and are so attracted to their music, because they're doing both jobs. But the synthesis of it all is the key to it. Ngoma, give me a bass line. I'm a riff with you. Okay, all right.
I've been muting myself when I'm playing.
Yeah, give me something.
Mark, just 10 minutes left.
Okay, thanks, Olivia. Just because, just because, just because, just because the world's gone wrong doesn't give you any reason not to sing this song. Birds are chirping, skies bright blue. Plenty of people doing worse than you. Homeless, hungry, suffering from disease. Seems every morning we should hit our knees. Pledge praise to the pledge, praise to the pledge, praise to the power. Thanks, bro. So all of you who don't play instruments, get into your music. All you writers who don't play instruments, get into your music, because you all love music. You've
I
all
can
been
play
influenced
drums a
by
little
music.
bit, but that's
Yeah,
it.
you have all been influenced by music. Find melodies. How many of you write poems or lyrics to existing melodies? How many of you ever written a line of poetry based on a bass line? You hear the bass line, boom, 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 and the greatest example is John Coltrane's bass line in Love Supreme. Boom, 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 boom,
Boom,
boom, boom,
boom, boom,
boom.
boom.
So before that bass line was created, all right, John had already must have had in his mind where he was going. It had to be something spiritual, something praising God or whatever it is, all right. But you could be sure the bass line came before the words that sit on top of it, that they say towards the end of the song. There's no way in the world a love supreme came before boom, 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 boom. And even though we're saying a love supreme, intellectually we understand that, but emotionally, it will never affect us the way the bass line does. Forget the lyrics. So it's boom, boom. Which one is going to be more influential? Boom, 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 or a love supreme, a love supreme. The minute I start singing, it becomes an intellectual exercise, and you have to start thinking what I'm talking about. But you don't have to think about anything when you hear boom, 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 boom. boom, boom. And we need to write like that. And if you start to write like that, then you'll start to speak like that in front of people. And you start to become really, really confident about your use of musicality of poetry. Because the whole idea is no matter what you're talking about, how deep or profound it is, if you can make it sing, if you can make it really just take off, and we're not, wow, I feel this way because that sound of that particular word is taking me another place. And all of us here, I'll leave you all with this. Olivia, where we at time-wise?
What is that? 12, no, about 5 minutes.
Okay, cool.
7
Anybody got any comments, any ideas? Anybody want to say anything?
Guys, yeah, one thing. I got for my birthday this year this amazing collection, the Spoken Word Revolution.
Jerry Quickly.
And this is like
Jerry,
my new Bible.
Jerry, Doug, Jerry Quickly.
All right. Okay.
Have you heard his stuff in there?
Yeah, I mean, I got
Jerry Quickly. We know that book, bro.
You do? All of you?
Oh yeah, that book's old as hell. That book's old as hell.
Yeah, it's from 2003.
That book is old as hell. We all know that.
I'm working off of old stuff.
Oh, but I'm telling you, Doug.
Yeah.
Check out Jerry Quickly. If you
Jerry
haven't
Quickly.
really listened to, check out Jerry Quickly.
I will.
Yeah. He is the quintessential. He's what I'm talking about right now. All right. And you one day we'll run into each other. You're gonna go like, Reg, that Jerry Quickly shit was like, that was insane. Anybody else jump in? Anybody want to say anything?
Yeah, I never thought I would be participating in a workshop with somebody who I've admired since the mid 1990s, the legendary Reg E. Gaines.
Yeah.
Oh, yo.
Yeah.
You know what?
My dream has come true now.
Nice.
I'm embarrassed, man. I'm totally embarrassed.
No,
Why?
you should be embarrassed. You should be honored.
No, I am, but I appreciate you saying that. Trust me, because we don't get into it for that. We get into it because we love it. But I am so honored to hear somebody say that, especially the day after one of my major mentors, Miguel Algarin, has passed on to the other side. And so what you just said about me, I could say that about him, Amiri Baraka, John Coltrane, Billie Holiday, Perry Thomas, Punto,
Tonia Sanchez.
Pedro Pietri.
Hey, wait, no, Doug, that one I knew. That one I knew.
What, Sonia Sanchez?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sonia Sanchez. An idol of mine.
Me too.
Besides Baraka.
Yeah, an idol of all of us.
Yeah.
The only way
I love me some Sanchez.
The only way I know poets and stuff is from like YouTube. Occasionally I'll see it.
Check out Jessica Care Moore. Check her out. She's awesome too. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't got slams to go to or anything. The nearest one is
check out Sonny Patterson. Check out
Sunni. Oh, she's amazing on deaf poetry. Oh, yeah. Man, amazing.
Another legend is at this workshop too, in Goma Hill. I got to see him perform. I got to see him perform at a New Jersey virtual open mic back in June. He did a full set, over an hour.
Wow.
And that takes something. Yo, let me tell you something.
I just want to let everybody know this is a 3-string cigar box guitar. It's not a bass that I'm playing.
That's amazing.
When Africans were brought here and had to make their own instruments because they couldn't bring instruments with them, they made them out of everything they could find. So this is a 3-string cigar box guitar.
It sounds like a bass.
It's got a pickup in it because they didn't have pickups back in the day, so you could hear it.
It looks like a banjo.
It started becoming popular. They were popular around 1835, and they're becoming. People are using them now. Again, for doing like bluegrass and country. We invented bluegrass anyway. You know that, right? That's ours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do know that.
Okay.
Yo, everybody, can we get 10 seconds of silence for Miguel Algarin?
For sure.
Sure.
And I'm going to end this session by just saying again that Miguel Algarin is important for so many different reasons, but the main thing is this. he kept the doors. First of all, he created the institution, but he kept the doors of the cafe open.
Yeah.
Right, means paying bills, paying electricity, paying the property tax. All right, the hustle. He hustled to keep the place open so that we could go in there and not be censored. He created a place where we, people of color, just everybody, but he created a space where we did not have to feel shackled or censored. And that's the main thing. And very few of us in other parts of the country or the world have an institution that was created and built specifically for poetic expression. And that alone, we should all pay homage and give thanks to him. You know, anybody got a last word or something? Dimitri, you should give the last word because you graduated from the same school Miguel taught at. You know, give us the last word, Dimitri, about poetry and the beauty of poetry. And how Miguel, the first thing Miguel ever said to me was like, poetry is not about beauty, it's about pain.
All right. I mean, first of all, I'm gonna say that this workshop was really dope. I love this cipher format. Shout outs to Matt for talking a lot more this time around. Dee, thank you for being here. Douglas, thank you. And
Yeah,
Susanna, I see you in the cut without your mic and your video on. She's another MFA that graduated from Rutgers Newark, so we got to get her on.
Oh, I feel bad she wasn't jumping in the rope.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all right.
she does a
Some people-
lot of theatrics. Look, there she is. Hi, Susanna. Hey, hermana, how are you? Very
I'm
nice
good.
to see
How are
you.
you, hermano? I miss you and your poetry.
I miss you too. We got to hear your poetry next time.
Inshallah, next time, yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna end the next session will be the last session, but the next session I'm going to explore the poetry and music of Amiri Baraka. So if
Sweet.
you're gonna join us
Yes.
next go round, you should come with some Baraka something in your head. How a word of his influenced you, or like Ngoma started this whole session by talking about back in the day, Miguel would produce Baraka plays at the cafe. All right. So that's a whole story in itself. So I'm going to end with a piece by Amiri Baraka. Then we're going to get out of here. Olivia, when I'm done, you can sign us out. Thanks, Olivia. Here we go.
Of course.
Everything we don't understand is explained in art. Heart beats inside, spirit courses in, out. A circling translucency pumping Detroit red deep as the sea. And he who has bitten us is bitter, and he who has bitten us is bitter. And from that wound pours Malcolm, little by little. Peace, everybody. Hope your
Peace,
families are
Reg.
healthy and happy.
Take
All
care,
right.
guys.
Peace
Yeah.
and love,
Thank you so
everyone.
much for your time, everybody. Good seeing you and going with peace, man. Love y'all. Later.